with some really great organizations that work to support the community, including United Policyholders. This is an organization that provides insurance advocacy and education, disaster assistance information, pretty much nationwide. So they can really help connect people to the information and resources they need to navigate through insurance pre-disaster and in the event of a disaster. And their QR code is to your bottom right, and their website is called UpHealth. So the objectives of this training, we want to make sure that our community knows what to do in the event of an earthquake to stay safe. So by the end of this training, you should know how to stay safe during an earthquake and other disasters we will touch upon. The basic steps for preparing yourself and your loved ones for all types of disasters, including earthquakes. The actions needed to prepare yourself in your home. So aside from what do you do immediately when a disaster happens, what can you do to protect your property? What can you do to prevent potential injuries from happening? And how to safely respond when an earthquake happens and how to recover. What kind of steps you need to move forward right after the shaking stops. So starting with some preparedness information, we're going to talk about some basic tasks. I like short and simple when it comes to preparing. I know it can get overwhelming and there's a million and one things you can do, but start with the first 5. And they don't take too much time, don't take too much money, just a little effort. Knowing your risk and your response, and we'll go into these in a little bit more depth as we go through this training. And if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat or raise your hand and I can pause and respond. The second step is staying informed, knowing how to get alerts and where to find information. The third step is making a plan and practicing it. So once you know, okay, these are my risks, and you know how to be alerted if something major were to happen in your area, then you need to make a plan on what you are going to do to keep yourself safe and your loved ones safe. And you need to practice, because when we don't practice things, we are not able to as quickly act. And in a disaster, acting quickly can save your life. Also preparing your home and supplies. So once we have a plan, we also need to get supplies together. We need to get our home ready to be able to execute that plan. And just staying vigilant and staying situationally aware and ready is the final key to this. So as you can see, some things pretty quick. You could probably figure it out on your phone in a few minutes. Others you do need to sit down, you need to work through. And starting with that first one, know your risk and your response. So taking this training is going to help you know your response. Your risk, you're going to have to do a tiny bit of work on your end. Now, one thing that I like to always point out is the rule of thumb, and this doesn't apply to earthquakes, but applies to a lot of other disasters. If you close your eyes and you put your thumb in front of you and you can't fully cover an incident, whether it be the water for a tsunami or a wildfire or a hazardous material event, you are too close. You need to back up and get away from the area to keep yourself safe. But in this area, in our region, Santa Clara County, earthquake is our highest risk, followed by floods and severe weather, dam and levee failures, landslides, wildfires, and droughts. So knowing that, and then you can use the My Hazard Cal OES app to also kind of look and see those layers of exactly if you're in a liquefaction zone, because in an earthquake, some ground can basically turn into liquid, and that puts your home and your life at greater danger if you are in one of those regions. Some areas are right on fault lines. Some areas are in very high wildfire zones or on the border of one. So this QR code to your bottom left is the link to the myhazards.caloes.ca.gov website, where you can type in your address and just see what are those big disasters, since earthquakes and wildfires are huge for Santa Clara County. How badly could they affect you? And that doesn't tell you everything you need to know, but it is a good starting point to understand the risk. So earthquakes. I'm going to play a short video real quick. So in that video, things happened really quickly. And if you were in that room and you were experiencing that earthquake, if you didn't take a step to drop, cover, get under that table, cover your head and neck and hold on, you would likely get injured from that earthquake, from all of those flying things that you saw as the earthquake was happening. So really big, important part of knowing what to do during an earthquake is that stop, drop to the floor, cover, hold on. When I say stop, if you're sitting, you don't need to stop, right? We're just drop, covering, and hold on. But if I'm walking down the street, I'm gonna stop what I'm doing. If I'm driving in a car, I'm gonna slowly stop somewhere where nothing can fall on me and I can't fall into or on anything else. And then when the shaking stops, proceed with caution. Don't take elevators, do not run, walk out of rooms and out of buildings very slowly, and be cautious because things can fall and aftershocks can happen. And so more earthquakes can happen. Sometimes they can be bigger than the initial earthquake. That's called a foreshock. So that's
So can I ask a question?
yeah.
This is Cindy. How many of you know what the number one injury, thank you, that was reported at the hospitals after the Northridge earthquake was? Raise your hand if you know what that was. And Ken Kulik, that doesn't count because I've already told you.
What time did it happen? 5 a.m. or something?
It was, I think it was 3 a.m. It was early in the morning. The earthquake happened, and think about being in your bed and an earthquake happens, your lamp falls over, the ceiling fan falls down, the perfume bottles fall off the dresser, all those things happen, the windows break, and you jump out of bed and you run for the front door barefooted.
That's not good.
And cut feet was the number one answer. People cut their feet because they got out of bed quickly, ran for that front door, and cut their feet in the process. So we always like to recommend that people put a pair of shoes, you got that extra pair of shoes, that extra pair of tennis shoes that you don't really like to walk in anymore, put them under your bed. So when that earthquake happens, you can grab those shoes, put them on, and then run. And maybe, maybe you'll save yourself from being at one of those victims at the hospital with cut feet.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Cindy. So definitely, and that is the majority of earthquake related injuries are avoidable. We can't stop an earthquake, but we have and can put building codes to make our buildings resistant so they don't collapse during an earthquake. And we can do basic things in our own homes, and we'll get into a lot more of it, to keep ourselves from being injured by falling objects, by broken glass, by spills, and other hazards that could harm us. And the easiest one is what Cindy just mentioned. Having a pair of shoes next to your bed, making sure your kids have a pair of shoes next to their bed, having a leash next to your bed too, because if you have an animal and you're trying to leave a damaged building, you're gonna need to have them on a leash, or you can see them get injured too. And we don't ever want to see our cute furry friends injured. So after an earthquake, there's going to be a lot of things that are happening, especially a big one. You are going to have broken glass, you're going to have spills, you may have gas leaks, you may have other electrical or water damage in your home. There could be infrastructural damage, but starting with the gas, that is a big one. You can die from CO2 poisoning if there is a gas leak and you're not aware of it and don't take the appropriate measures to shut off the gas. So how do you know if there's a gas leak? The smell of rotten eggs or natural gas. Gas doesn't tend to have a smell, but the smell of rotten eggs was basically added to it to kind of alert people so that they were able to smell something and say, oh no, there's a gas leak. Hissing noise, so that may come from the gas line, if it's broken. Or if you go to the gas meter and the dials are spinning, that is another sign. Now, by a show of hands, please raise your hand if you know where your gas meter is. No one on the call knows where the gas meter is?
Deborah does.
There you go.
Good
Okay.
job, Deborah.
That is an easy task. Oh, Dan and Paula, awesome too. So that is a big step that you can take that can save your life. Just knowing where it is, not even taking a bunch of extra steps, but just one day when you're walking in from work or coming home, check and see. If you live in an apartment, ask your apartment management where it would be. And just know where that is. It can be really, really life-saving. And then if you smell gas, if you see signs that the gas is, there's a leak, you need to shut off the gas. So a 12 to 15-inch crescent wrench, basically a 1/4 turn in either direction, can shut off the gas meter. So as you can see on the pictures here, those are the gas meters, and just a 1/4 turn can do that for you. Now, understand if you shut off the gas, you can't turn the gas back on. You need to call the gas company to do that. So with caution, make sure there's a gas leak. If there's a gas leak or you suspect there's a gas leak, better safe than sorry, but understand, especially in an earthquake, the gas company is going to be super busy too. So you're not going to get your gas put back on for a while. With that said, your life is more important than having gas for a few days in your house. So take those steps and be cautious.
For the Loma Prieta earthquake, there was a wonderful guy in Los Gatos that decided after that earthquake that he would help all of his neighbors by going down the street and turning all their gas off. And, you know, those people, some of those people weren't home. Most of those, none, I don't know that any of them actually needed their gas turned off, but he was trying to be a good Samaritan. It kind of backfired a little bit because all those people had cold showers that night. Because the gas company couldn't come out fast enough and turn the gas back on. So if it's perpendicular to the pipe, it's off. If it's parallel to the pipe, that means the gas can flow through the pipe.
Questions?
Does anyone have any questions?
Do they know where their gas valve is?
Yeah,
We quizzed them on
Oh,
that.
sorry.
No, you're good. So one other thing about gas, if you have any suspicion that there's gas, flames, sparks, keep them away. Now that might sound common sense to you, but something that might not is even turning on your flashlight when you're in a house that's filled with gas can create that spark. So smallest thing can create the spark. So use extra caution if you suspect a gas leak, and don't enter a building if you think there's a gas leak. Call your gas company and let them know, and don't enter it because you don't want to inhale those toxic fumes, and you also don't want to blow up.
We had a friend a few years ago, it wasn't an earthquake or a full-on disaster, but they were doing some work in his neighborhood. And they nicked the pipe under his house and they filled the hole underneath of his house with gas. And he happened to not be there, thank God, but someone came up and pressed the doorbell and that sparked and caused the house to explode.
Yeah, so gas can be a big danger, so cautious, especially during an earthquake. If it's big enough to create damage, it's big enough to damage your gas lines, your water lines, your electricity, and the like. So that kind of brings the idea of fires, right? Check for fires. You have a candle on when earthquake happens, you may have a fire, you may have an electrical issue that can create a fire. There's many reasons small fires or big fires can start during an earthquake. And now another show of hands, can you raise your hand if you know how to use a fire extinguisher?
I know some of them do. Yay, Deborah, thank you, Lisa, good.
Yay, yay.
Ken, I don't know where he is, but yeah,
Yeah, very good. Carlos,
awesome.
great.
So, awesome for those who know how to use it. If you don't, little bit of a crash course on it, but I always recommend trainings and practices, because it's one thing to see it on a PowerPoint, it's another thing to feel it in your hands and actually practice. So CERT teams, Red Cross, and other organizations may have trainings available that may include some fire safety and extinguishing. The fire department sometimes do too. So just keep your eye out and go in your backyard with your fire extinguisher and safely try it out if not. But I definitely recommend doing it with professionals. Always safer, always easier. So on your fire extinguisher, just knowing where things are, you have a pressure gauge. That's right about here. Then you have your handles. You're gonna squeeze that handle when this plastic thing is taken off. And you first have to pull the ring to get that plastic thing taken off.
Turn it like a key.
Yep, and you have your nozzle where you aim to shoot. So let's walk through that. First, there are 3 types, A, B, and C extinguishers. Some can do more than one, but A is ordinary. So you have a candle, it falls on a drape, and you have a fire. Type A is what you would use. You have a gas, you're cooking when the earthquake happens, and there's gas or oil, and that's what creates the fire. You would use a type B, and a type C would be used for like electrical fires. So how do we use it? There's an acronym: push, pull. Thank you. Pull the pin.
Like a key.
So pull the pin like a key, aim the nozzle, squeeze the handle, and sweep back and forth. Highly recommend that you only try to put out a small fire. So think of like a small trash bin. That's as big as you're trying to pull out. Otherwise, you are trying to warn people, call 911 and get out of Dodge.
I always say a small trash can like the one in your bathroom is the size of a small fire. I am in no way the size of a small fire, and neither are you.
So I'll show you a video in a second, but there is a comment, take the basic CERT course, you will use a fire extinguisher. Absolutely, that's where I learned how to use one myself. And CERT training is always good to have. Knowing those basic skills can save your life. It can stop a tiny fire from turning into something huge and catastrophic. So I'll pause now and we'll watch this little video as a demonstration on using a fire extinguisher. So holding it properly, keeping a decent distance away, as you can see, and just following basically those 4 little steps. For big fires, do not try to put out a big fire. Unless you are a firefighter with firefighter equipment, you are risking your life trying to put out a big fire. What you need to do is leave as fast as you can. It's warn everyone as you are leaving, pulling fire alarms. If you're in your house, shouting out to everybody to get out. Now, let's say you're asleep when an earthquake happens and it starts a fire, or you just start a fire, there's a fire, you see smoke in your house. Getting down, getting low, smoke will kill you before the heat of the fire will kill you. So the smoke's gonna rise, you go down, it goes up. Don't use elevators. Anytime there's a disaster, just don't use elevators. Just avoid them. Take the stairs. If you catch on fire, stop, drop, and roll, right? You can, if someone else is on fire, try to pat them down or use water or something along that line to try to help.
How long do I have before I have to get out if there is a fire?
You have now, get out at that moment.
2 minutes.
Yeah.
No more.
Yeah, 2 minutes, and by then the smoke will have got into your body in a way that is lethal. To try to avoid fire from spreading, shut doors as you're exiting. But if you're trying to open a door and you see smoke, check the knob, because that knob can burn your hand if that fire is over that door. And plus, if you open it, all of the flames are gonna come right at you. So try not to run into a fire and try to make sure you check the doorknob, generally with like a light tap from your forearm, so you don't burn your hands. And again, alert everyone, even if it's not nighttime, even if it's the day, 2 minutes, that's what you have. So if people aren't aware, they can die too. So you can save a life by just letting people know what's happening. If there is an earthquake, turn off the electricity if you see any signs of electrical damage, such as sparks or signs of an electrical fire. If you suspect electric fire, turn off the electricity, because that will help prevent it from getting worse. Just like if you had a gas fire from your stove, if you can safely turn off that stove, it can help prevent the fire from growing. Electricity, you can turn back on your own as long as there's no electrical damage, but don't turn it on if you think there's electrical damage, because then you can start an electric fire. So how many people know where their main switch is in their home? Can I get a raised hands, please?
All right. Let's see, 3,
Carlos,
4. Lisa,
Martha,
You,
Arthur.
Ann,
awesome.
Okay.
So you will, everyone has these in their homes, even if you're in your apartment, you're gonna have one of these switches. You need to know what they are and what they do. Which ones turn on what. So the main switch is on the top, and that will shut everything off. The switches on the bottom are basically to different rooms or different sections of your house. You want to first shut off all individual switches and then the main switch. As far as water is concerned, same exact thing. If you see a broken line, or you see a meter acting up just like with gas, or you see like stains from the wall or the floor or the ceiling that show signs of water leakage, you want to shut off the valve at the main line if you can too, or the underground meter. So the underground meter will probably be somewhere close to the entrance of your house. Can I get a raised hands for anyone who knows where their water meters are? And again, same thing. In this case, walk around your house, learn where these things are. That could be the easiest thing you do that can be helpful if a big earthquake were to happen, or when a big earthquake will happen, likely. Thank you, guys. So, building damage. Our building codes have improved much over the past few decades, but you want to also check for building damage. Now, if your home was built before 1978, you want to see about doing modifications on your home, because it may not be up to the standard to manage a large earthquake. Regardless, when a earthquake happens, you want to check for certain things. You want to check to see if doors are stuck, if there are large diagonal cracks on your building, or you see any foundational movement or like foundational damage or cracks. So some visuals of that. To your right, you'll see like on the top left picture, you see the cracks coming down from the window. You're seeing on the far right picture, all of those cracks. That is signs of structural damage. You don't want to be in a house that has structural damage. You need a building inspector to come and see if your house is safe to enter before you enter any of those homes. And you want to check on your neighbors. In any major disaster, first responders are not responding to you first. What they are doing first is assessing the damage to see how to best support the community and protect lives. This is why we have CERT teams, the community emergency response teams. This is why we have them, because at the end of the day, when something happens, the first people who are going to help you are the people in your household and the people in your neighborhood, your family, your friends, your neighbors. So if they know what to do, they know how to extinguish a fire, they know CPR, which the Red Cross can train, they know how to do some basic support, they're more likely to be able to help you. And if they know you and they have your contact information and you guys know each other and talk, you're more likely to be comfortable, and they are more likely and you're more likely to check on each other and make sure you're okay. And that's not just physically, that's not just, are you okay? Nothing's fallen on you. It's also, are you okay? Because you just dealt with a disaster, and that can take a horrible mental toll on you if you don't have support. So talking a little bit more about hazards, a lot of hazards can happen with earthquake. It shakes everything up. It can create all of the house hazards we talked about, but it can also create wildfires. It can create tsunamis. It can create power outages. So just real quick, a little bit of stuff that you want to know. Wildfires, if you are told that you have an evacuation order, get out of the area. Officials will tell you where to go and what to do. Follow those instructions and protect yourself from poor air quality, because again, just like in your house, that building fire, the smoke is the most lethal thing that can kill you in 2 minutes. In a wildfire, that poor air quality can severely harm your health, and the fire can harm you, which is why if you have an evacuation order, get out. If you have an evacuation warning and you need extra time to evacuate, you have animals at home, you have medical needs that would require more time to evacuate, you want to evacuate when you get a warning or when you feel unsafe, even if you get no warnings. Tsunamis can happen on the coastline. So if you're visiting the beach, you're up in San Francisco or down on the Central Coast, when a big earthquake happens, you need to get away from the coast. Go inland and go to higher ground as quickly as possible. Do not wait for a warning. Do not wait for officials to tell you anything. Immediately take that step. And don't go to the coast if an earthquake just happened unless officials have given an all clear. So CADRE has developed some great wildfire preparedness material. Just kind of what we talked about a little bit, but a lot more information on what to do if a wildfire were to happen and how to keep yourself safe, and how to recover, including information on access and functional needs and immigration support, and what to expect if you have to evacuate. We have a lot of this information in a multitude of languages as well on our website. So you can visit cadresv.org /wildfire to see all of that information. And then we also have some great wildfire air quality information under our preparedness webpage. So cadresv.org /preparedness. And in there, you'll find information about checking the air quality, about making your own air filters, about what different air quality ratings mean, and great information just to peek through and make sure you're aware of. And you can have power outages, electricity's out, utilities might be out, might be damaged. If you have a power outage during an earthquake, keep your freezers and refrigerators closed. Does anyone know on the call, how long your food in a full freezer will last you? Feel free to unmute if you know the answer to that question. How long will it stay cold?
Yes.
Arthur says 48 hours.
Merle says 2.
So 48 hours, a full freezer will last 48 hours if you keep it closed, 24 if it's halfway. Ken, you have your hand raised?
Ken knows, that's why.
Yeah, so the freezer's gonna last longer than your fridge, but basically the more packed it is, the longer it's gonna last, which is good to know, and keeping it closed is important. You're letting the cold out when you're opening it. So if you are without power, use the stuff that will go bad first. So my milk, my dairy, my meat is gonna go first, and the things that can last on the shelves are gonna be eaten last. And I want to make sure that I have enough food and supplies to last me, specifically non-perishable foods, things that won't go bad if they're not refrigerated as well. But it's really good to know if you think your food's bad, I wouldn't eat it, because you don't want to have food poisoning on top of dealing with it. So power outages, if you have one, you want to turn off or disconnect your appliances. I know that might sound counterintuitive, but if the power comes back, it can send a surge, it can fry all your stuff. Leave one light on so that you know when the power's back on. But especially like if you have your laptop charging and the power comes back on, that laptop might go away. So want to do that definitely. And you want to try to avoid carbon monoxide poisoning. Generators are great. They're so useful. If you have a generator at home, it is awesome, and you should if you can. With that said, portable generators can create carbon monoxide poisoning. They cannot be directly plugged into your house. They need to be kept at least 20 feet away from windows. Definitely follow all of the instructions there. If you're going to do a residential generator and you are proactive and you want to make sure you have electricity, even if a disaster hits, you need to get it permitted. You need an electrician to properly install it. You don't want to end up with carbon monoxide poisoning and killing yourself trying to get some power.
Every home should have a carbon monoxide alarm beside the smoke alarms.
Yes, on every level of your home. So CO2 alarms, smoke alarms, check the batteries frequently on every level of your home. It will give you an alert that will save your life if there's CO2 in the air or fire. And never, ever use a gas stove or oven to heat your home. So if an earthquake happens in the summer, which it just seems like things always happen at the worst time. So if it happens in the summer and there's a heat wave and there's no electricity, just a few quick tips on how to stay safe. Drink plenty of fluids. Air condition places if you can, or shade, light clothes. If there is a big earthquake and it's in the middle of the summer, there should be cooling centers, there should be places open that hopefully are safe to go to, and you can make sure, even like malls or
The movie theater.
yeah, the movie theater, anywhere that's still up and functioning that has air conditioning, go there if there's a heat wave. Heat can kill you in a way that every other disaster sounds so scary, but heat is deadly if you're not taking the steps to keep yourself safe. And you need to know the signs of heat illness. So if you have a heat stroke, the heat stroke is when the sweating stops. You're going to be sweating. You might have heat exhaustion from sweating. You might feel nauseous if you're too hot. You might have a rapid, weak pulse if you're too hot. But if your pulse gets strong and rapid, if you stop sweating, if you start throbbing, if you start feeling like you're losing conscious, that's a heat stroke. That will kill you. It will kill you if you don't get help. If you start feeling some heat exhaustion, if you start getting really sweaty, drink water, cool yourself down, go into an ice shower, a cold bath, or whatever it might be. And try to cool yourself down, because you will need medical help if you get a heat stroke. And it can kill you. It's killed many, many people without an earthquake. You add an earthquake to it, things can get worse. And this is just a general, but never ever leave a person or animal alone inside a vehicle on a warm day. Even an 80-degree day, even in the shade, it can
Even
kill
with the
them,
windows cracked.
even when the window's cracked. Yep. Okay, so that was just the basics on how to deal with disasters, right? Knowing what to do. So you basically got a crash course on number one. If you go and check and make sure you know where your water meters are and your gas meters are, and you check the My Hazard app, you can check that off your list. You already got 1/5 of the way there. So the next thing to do is knowing where to get information. So just like you need a smoke alarm and a CO2, a carbon monoxide alarm, to keep you safe at home, signing up for local alerts. And if you're not from Santa Clara County, every county has an alert system. Sign up for it. This will tell you if you need to evacuate. It will give you that pertinent information in an emergency. For earthquakes, MyShake is a great app, and I will give you a little bit more of a spiel on that one very shortly, but MyShake is a wonderful app that gives you a few seconds notice before a major earthquake happens. You need to download the app. The notification needs to be on, but we watched that earthquake video. And if you had 3 seconds to know to get under your table, that could save your life and it could prevent injury. So definitely 2 things you should do is sign up for your local county's alerts and download the MyShake app. And then if you're looking for information, CADRE has a great resource that, and I will share these slides and we'll share the links after the training is over. But we do have a great resource as far as trusted sources of information. So we have a nice list for Santa Clara County. And those support networks I referenced earlier, they can be useful for this. And this is the goal of them, is being a conduit for resources and for information between organizations. So the county, the cities, they'll share their information with you as well, but having a way to coordinate with other local organizations can be useful. Alert SCC, that's Santa Clara County's alert. If you don't live in Santa Clara County, type in alert and pick your county or city's name and see what pops up. I guarantee every one of your counties has an alert system. Many cities also build off of these alert systems or have their own. And that's just the basic information on signing up. If you have questions, or I put the phone number and email for Alert SCC as well. But that's just alertscc.com. And then MyShake. So to your right, you'll see the App Store QR codes for Google Play and for the App Store for MyShake. Again, you want those notifications on, you want your location on, you can pick your settings, like when you want to be alerted. But like if it's a 4.0 or 6.0, I think it defaults to 5.0, but it might be 4.5. So I personally put 5.0, but 4.5 is the default. You could put it lower if you want to know about earlier ones. And it's worked so far as I have seen. I've been alerted a couple times. If for some reason it doesn't, it's likely because you need to update it. Because I experienced too many earthquakes in Los Angeles recently. And one of them, I got the notice and the other I didn't. The first one I didn't because my app wasn't updated. So I updated it. Second time I got the alert. Weren't too big, but I was prepared to get under my table. I was prepared to protect myself from the panels right above me that could fall on my head and cause a concussion. So definitely sign up. Takes 2 seconds. You can do it right now while I'm talking to you. And then this is the QR code for those trusted resources that I listed earlier. And this is just who can you get information from specifically for Santa Clara County. But if you are in a different county, I would start with your county's emergency management, with your local VOAD if you have one, with your Red Cross, if there's chapters all over the nation for Red Cross too. National Weather Service is great. CAL FIRE for most places that don't have their own fire departments in California. Good resources for information.
Red Cross also has 12 different apps that you can put on your phone for free.
Yes.
Just go to your app store.
Mhm. Before I hop to the next part, I would like to pause. Can I get a raise of hands if you are signed up for any alert system right now?
Jackie?
They should all be raised, come
Lisa?
on.
Deborah? Greg?
So for anyone here who doesn't have your hand raised, those first two steps can save your life, they can protect you, and you can finish one of them before the end of this training, and the other one on your walk out to work tomorrow, you can check where your meters are on your way home. So those first two steps, easy, quick, but doing them will give you the awareness you need to be able to act. The next step, and this is for everyone should have a plan, but this one takes a little bit more time. Definitely helpful, and knowing what you're doing can reduce the anxiety and the fear and the helplessness that disasters can create. An earthquake can happen at any second and it can change our lives and flip them upside down, figuratively and literally. If we know what we're doing, if we have some plans, if we have some backup plans to those plans, we can at least move forward without that sense of helplessness, because we're not helpless. We are capable of taking some power into our hands. We can't control the whole universe. We can't control if the ground moves, but we can control what we do, and we can reclaim some of that power for ourselves, which can save us, but it can also just give us some peace of mind when something happens. So kind of just walk through different scenarios to answer these questions. How will you address your basic needs if an earthquake happens? If a big earthquake happens and you can't enter your home, what are you gonna do? How are you gonna deal with housing, with food, with water, with any medicine you need, any medical equipment you need, with your kids' school, with what are you gonna do? What do you need? And how are you gonna deal with that? Where can you look for help? Because you might not have that answer, but if you have the answer of who can I ask, where can I go, that can start helping you answer how are you gonna address it. How will you communicate? If an earthquake happens right now, I guarantee you're not with everyone you love. You're not. Unless there's a family reunion when it happens, you are likely away from some of your loved ones, especially in an earthquake, where roads could be damaged, where buildings can be damaged and people had to exit those buildings and go elsewhere. How can you communicate? And we're going to I'll give you a few tips on communicating during major disasters. And how will you respond to each disaster? We kind of talked about what you can do, but if you have to evacuate, where are you gonna go? How are you gonna get there? What happens if you can't get to your car? What's your alternative means? If you can get to your car, do you have enough gas? Which route are you taking? What if that route's closed? Where else can you go? Where are you gonna stay? Public shelters, you can stay there, but they're not as comfortable as potential other options. They often don't allow pets. If you have larger animals, what are you gonna do with them? How are you gonna get them there? If you have to shelter in place, if you have to stay home, we did that with COVID and toilet paper went missing off of the shelves. No one can find any. What is gonna happen if you have to stay home and shelter in place? Do you have enough food, water, medicine, hygiene items to last you for a week, 2 weeks? So communicating, that is just a few tips as you think about your communication plans. Landlines, if you still have one, very rare now, but they exist, work better. Payphones, I think there's like 3 left, but they're somewhere. They work better than cell phones during emergencies. Texting will work better than phone calls. The text will automatically send over and over and over. The phone call is once. So if it doesn't go through because everybody is calling each other, communication lines, cell towers might be down, and everyone is calling each other, even if the cell towers aren't down, which is creating a jam. So texting, more likely to get through, and the same thing goes with the internet. Sending an email is gonna be better than giving a call. Texting on social media is gonna be better than a call. And long distance calls. So question for you all, how many of you have a person outside of the area who your whole family has the number and knows to call if an emergency were to happen and you can't communicate with each other? Someone that lives at least 100 miles away from your home. Show of hands.
And Arthur, Dan,
Yeah, my kids live in a foreign country, Idaho.
Steve.
Awesome. Okay, good. So having those numbers, make sure you memorize that number. Our phones can break, they can die. So having those numbers memorized, really important. My person's in Philadelphia. We told her she's never allowed to change her cell phone number because we will not take the effort to learn another number, and she hasn't. It's been like 15 years. So we know to call her if we cannot get a hold of each other. And this is the same reason. Our lines internally are being jammed by everyone calling each other. Very few people are calling out of the area. So calling out of the area is more likely to get through than calling in the area. So if a major earthquake were to happen, I know if I can't get a hold of my mom and sister, I'm gonna call my aunt, they're also gonna call, and she's gonna say, yeah, I just spoke to your mom, she's here, she said to meet her there. Now, I already have a location where we're gonna meet, but just in case, maybe she's in a different place. She was at the grocery store when the earthquake happened and has to meet me somewhere else because she can't get to our evacuation location. So having that person really helpful.
And making sure that that person knows what they're supposed to do. When the earthquake happens in California, I actually live in the state of Washington. When the earthquake happens in California, I'm gonna watch the news to see what's going on with the earthquake. I'm gonna start writing notes when my family members call. Sally's this place, Scott's over here, they said this, you know, so-and-so's at the hospital. You know, I'm gonna keep notes of all that stuff because I'll panic and I'll forget, and I won't say everything, you know. So then that way, when my brother Rod calls in, I'll tell him, Scott's here, Kim's there, this one's this, that's that, and then they have all the information.
Absolutely. Loop them into your plans too. Tell them what they should be doing, but also what you're supposed to be doing. Because if they know that this park is where you guys are gonna meet, and they have their internet and they have the news and they have more situational awareness than you at the moment, they can say, they're using that park for this, or the road to that park has been completely shut off, you can't go that way. So they can help, but Cindy, you're 100% right. In an emergency, we can panic. And if we panic, the information can get lost. So writing it down, having them write it down, having them relay it, having questions that you're gonna ask, you might not have that long to be on that phone call. So I'm okay, I'm gonna be here, tell everyone that to meet me at this location. Something like that, just kind of keep it short, keep it sweet, because the other people may be calling all at the same time trying to talk to you too, so. And then your battery, this is just like a general rule, you should keep your batteries charged. I'm not good at following my own rule, I'll get better, I promise, but if you don't, you can also just keep chargers. I have a charger everywhere. I have a portable charger in my purse. Every single one of my cars has 2 chargers of each type because I don't charge my phone enough, so I keep them close. And I have one of those little crank chargers as well, just in case everything else fails me. It can be really helpful if the electricity is not working and you're trying to find your family or find resources or get somewhere. Having your phone charged is really, really important for that. And if your phone's not charged and you don't take my advice and you have no chargers with you, conserve your battery. Airplane mode when you're not using it, reducing your brightness, closing all your apps, limiting unnecessary usage. You don't need to be looking at TikTok videos of the disaster while you're trying to get to safety. You don't need to be texting everyone, just the people who are going to be helping share information and those in your area who your loved ones who you're trying to connect with. So try to keep it to a minimum, keep it for those uses, especially if you don't have a charger. And practicing is so important. But when I say practice at least twice a year, at least. One time in the day, one time at night. Start from different locations. Have different people involved in it. Add your out of area contact to one of these evacuations. Include children, include pets. Don't forget them. I know you might want to protect your kids from feeling any type of anxiety, but make it a game. Make it a game, because then when the earthquake happens, they'll be less traumatized. They'll be like, oh, I remember what to do. And this is why we do it at schools, to make it a game. But we also forget our pets. And I'll tell you, my sister's dog, we tried to put it in one of those little carriers to take it to the airport, and he escaped 3 times, cried, whined, scratched, and fought us the entire way because he's not used to a carrier. And if you have to evacuate and you have to take your animals quickly and they are not used to what you are doing with them, they could run away and they could die. And I don't mean to be like morbid about this, but that is a truth, because the earth just shook, and it's scary for us and it's scarier for them. And there's glass everywhere, and there's broken stuff, and there's downed wires, and there are more dangers than there usually are, and they're going to be on their toes and scared. So if they're used to being on their leash, they're going to go on their leash. If they're used to being in a carrier, they'll go in the carrier. But if they haven't been in a carrier ever and you try to put them in a carrier, especially during a disaster.
My son didn't want to be put in a carrier.
So keep the cute furry animals safe. And definitely don't just open a door and let them wild. And that's something I think that, especially with earthquakes, everything just happened and you're kind of in this uppy, I need to go mode. Put a leash on your dogs. Make sure your cats don't rush out the door when you open it, because again, the hazards, there's more of them. We got to keep our little furry friends safe. Yes, please teach your pets about crates. Yes. And think about them. Take pictures, absolutely. Having them have a collar, having microchipping. Those are really great ideas, because if for some reason things don't go the way they're supposed to and the animal runs off, how are you going to find them? And if they don't, and you actually successfully take them with you, where are you taking them? That matters. Are you going to a hotel? Are you staying at your family's house, but they're allergic to dogs or cats or snakes or whatever you may have with you? Are there extra steps that you need to take if it's not a cat or a dog? If you do have an animal that requires specific, like birds or reptiles that require specific types of conditions to live, how are you going to transport them and where are you taking them?
I've done a lot of work with the animal control agencies in Santa Clara County when it comes to things like emergency shelters and animals. And I will tell you that they have told me that if you show up at an animal shelter with pets that have not been vaccinated, they will vaccinate them. So don't put your pet through that. Nobody likes to give their dogs a shot. If you don't have to, keep the paperwork with you. I have a copy of it on my phone. I just took pictures of my dog's vaccinations, both dogs, pictures of me with those dogs on my phone. And I keep those with me all the time. And that way, if I come into a shelter, I've got that paperwork and my animals will not be vaccinated because of it.
That is such an excellent point. And just so you know, if they take your animal and vaccinate it, they're going to charge you and they're not going to release your animal to you until you pay what you need to pay and do all of that. So having those documents, really important. And you're already pulling your fur baby away from you into a shelter if necessary. You don't want to add extra stress.
It's really much better just to keep it on your phone, that way you can stay there.
Lisa says they'll also microchip them, and that's possible. They they will possibly microchip them
Yeah.
at the shelter if they're not microchipped already.
It would be helpful if they had microchips to begin with.
Yeah, and you know, the other thing about a microchip is, you know, a microchip is useless if there's nothing on the other end of that number. You know, so if your if your animal is microchipped and it's not registered anywhere, that's not gonna do any good.
Okay.
If you've got it registered with the Humane Society here in Santa Clara County and you take your dog for a trip to Washington and it gets lost in Washington, because that's pretty, you know, a pretty common thing that could happen. Washington may not be able to get a hold of that microchip number. Make sure you've got a copy of your microchip number so that you could go to the Humane Society in Washington and say, my dog is missing and here's her microchip number. Can you tell me whether or not you found this animal?
You were one of the first people that helped the county create the trailers and everything else.
Yeah.
We are now in Red Cross, we are now able to do animal issues, and we have a whole animal gap, if you will. But I'm not fond of some of the tarantulas and boa constrictors and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Emotional support animals.
Yes. I can't picture a rat, but there are people who love these animals. So they have that respect.
Okay, so the next task, you got a plan, you got your alerts, you know what you're supposed to be doing, great. You need supplies to do the things that you need to do. If you have a plan to shelter in your house for a week and you have no water or food in your house, we're gonna have a problem. So having the supplies we need, having our home ready to go, and our go kits ready to go, and we'll talk about what supplies you need. So Cindy already told us about one, right? The shoes next to the bed. I would add to that a flashlight and any hearing aids or glasses you need, especially if you need glasses to see basic stuff. Like I can kind of see without my glasses, but it's like blobs, but some people can't see at all. And if that's the case, you're putting yourself in danger there. If that's the case, I also kind of recommend having something that you can stick that won't fall off a desk when it's shaking, so that you don't end up stepping on your glasses and breaking them as you're trying to evacuate. But let's talk about some of the supplies you need. Now, you need a supply kit in every place that you stay a lot of times. So your work, your home, if you take care of your parents at their house over there, whatever it might be. You need one to go. So first you need supplies in these places to shelter in place, but you also need supplies that you can take with you. You can leave a go kit in your car. You can have one right next to your door in your house. You can have both. I recommend having one in each place that you frequent, but including your car. And we have some specific stuff for the car. Let's talk about the house first. At least a week of food, water, and medicine. If you have cans, don't forget a manual can opener, because it would suck if you have nothing. Yeah, or a knife, and I've tried with a knife and it's not fun and you can cut yourself and we don't need to bleed. So,
Yeah, we need to stop the bleed.
exactly. So manual can opener. Now I know some medicines are really hard to get bulks of. I completely understand how difficult that can be, especially really important medicines that they won't give you extra of. Your doctor might not. With those,
It isn't the doctors, the insurance company that won't give them to you.
yes, definitely. So, I highly recommend talking to your doctor if you cannot get extra supplies of your medicine, and talking to them and your pharmacy. And when you make those plans and say, oh, I'm gonna evacuate to this area because that's where my brother lives, and I'm probably gonna go stay with him because he loves my fur babies. So if that's your case, then I'm gonna check the pharmacy next to his house, and I'm gonna talk to my doctor in my pharmacy to see how to make sure they have me on record, because in the event of a big emergency, I can go to the pharmacy and those rules get laxed a bit. And if I say I need this medicine because I have a heart condition and I can have a heart attack if I don't, or something life-threatening can happen if I don't have this medicine, they can make that decision there, and they're more likely to say yes if they already have that planning ahead of time. So that's just kind of my tidbit on the medicine.
And this is Marcia, let's just go back to the glasses again, if, anytime you get a new pair of glasses, take the old pair and put it in one of the kits. So that you'll be able to see just one prescription less than what you have now, but make sure that when you have those glasses and you say, what am I gonna do with them now? Put them in your kit, and I can't tell you the times that I've been traveling with a backpack and forgot my glasses at the hotel or other things, and there's a set in the bottom of my backpack. And I can't see without them. I cannot see.
That's a great point. I have my most recent backup pair in my car because I can see without them, but I can't drive without them. And then I have my older pair in my emergency kit. So great idea. Definitely. And then also consider if you have like electrical medical devices or you need refrigeration for your medication, consider that. And again, the pharmacy, that discussion can help, because if the power is out and your fridge was empty and you opened it and the time ran out in there and it went bad, you're gonna need to be able to get that medicine relatively rapidly. We already talked about the extra chargers, solar car chargers, really helpful to have. Changes of clothes and emergency blankets. I usually will put a few comfortable things that I don't really wear, but could in an emergency. So like I'll put some sweatpants, some like stretchy pants, a few
Yes,
regular
elastic
tees.
waistbands, only elastic waistbands.
Sturdy shoes. I'm not taking flip-flops with me in this go bag, but I will have some extra socks and shoes and underwear. Just like the basics. You don't want to wear this. I mean, it's not going to kill you to wear the same thing for a week, but
Women's underwear.
it might stink though. And on top of that, this is already a difficult enough time. If you have to evacuate, you're already going through enough where you don't need to have to flip your underwear inside out to wear it for your 7th day. So don't overpack. I'm pretending I'm talking to my sister at this point. Do not pack yourself a suitcase of a month's worth of clothes. Please don't do that. If you put too much stuff in a bag, you can't take that bag with you. Like, you're not gonna fit all of this stuff as you're evacuating and you have 5 minutes to get out of your home and get out of the area because the wildfire was started by this earthquake. Like, what can fit in a backpack is what you're trying to take. Maybe a suitcase, think carry-on. Like, do not take a big suitcase with you. You're gonna pull out your bag trying to put it in the car. Toiletries, toothbrush, deodorant, toilet paper. You don't have to take a bunch with you, but having some of this stuff with you, you should grab your laundry basket with you. It has your favorite clothes. You could do that. The only thing I would say is you might not have a laundromat. So having something in your go bag is going to be useful. If you have space for it and you have the time for it, yeah, if you want your favorite
Well,
clothes.
they're gonna
definitely.
smell anyway, they might as well.
Well, a 32-gallon black trash bag and a 10-gallon kitchen bag,
Yeah,
that's wonderful.
Yeah, so definitely can definitely do that. Again, you're trying to make yourself more comfortable in a difficult situation when it comes to the clothes. The hygiene items, it's not just comfort there. I feel like it's something a little bit more.
Mindful.
Yeah. So, and you want to have extra stuff in your house. You want to have a smaller, think 3-day supply for the evac. Think 1 to 2 week supply for in the house. Ideally 2 weeks, but if you can't, make it a 1 week supply. Just remember COVID, remember the toilet paper. You want to have a week supply of what you need to get through.
I want to thank Lisa for your participation. I really appreciate you
Yes.
jumping in periodically.
Great,
Lisa.
great feedback. I put in the chat our link to the Dollar Tree emergency supply kit, because if you don't have any supplies, you can start there and it's very inexpensive, but particularly medication and toiletries, they have they have the right sizes and they have things that, you know, you're gonna pay $1.25 for, so. Download that list and share it with your friends.
Mhm.
It's free.
It's free.
Definitely. This doesn't have to cost you an arm and a leg, just flashlight, extra batteries, other things you can get from the Dollar Tree. The flashlight, big one, earthquake. I feel it while I'm sleeping. I get up. I'm okay because I was in my bed and nothing fell on me because I was smart enough not to hang the huge mirror right on the top of my head on the headboard. So there was nothing there. I was just fine, but I got up, there's glass, there's spills, there's a whole mess going on, and it's the middle of the night and the electricity is out. I need my flashlight, I need to be able to see. I personally have one in my car and I have one in each part of my house because, again, you don't want to smash your head into the wall or step on glass or trip over your couch that has been twisted over from an earthquake. You need to be able to see what's going on, and you need batteries. If you have 8 flashlights all over your house and no batteries for them, or the battery's about to die on them, they're not going to be very useful for you. I don't recommend using candles. You don't want to start a house fire. So flashlights, light sticks, if you don't have flashlights, or another alternative is
It's almost
less
Halloween,
effective,
there'll be
but
light
still.
sticks everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Copies of important documents. I don't really recommend personally taking these physically with you everywhere, but I do recommend having the original copies in a fireproof, waterproof, sealed type of binder or something along that line, folder, bag. And I definitely recommend having digital copies. Digital copies will be really useful. That out of area contact that you trust and you love, they should probably have a copy of that if you trust them enough to give them a copy of that. But either way, you need to have those documents. You need to know your insurance policy number and have a copy of your ID and your birth certificate and your kids' school records and your animals' vaccination and microchipping records. They're gonna come in handy. You will need them, so have them ready to go. Cash. ATMs will not work if the power is out. Have cash on you. You don't need to have $10,000 on you, but have a couple $100 of cash ready to go if an emergency were to happen. And then when I say valuable possessions, I don't mean take your great grandmother's big clock or pack every piece of jewelry you've ever owned into a bag. I mean, if you lost your house tomorrow and you're just thinking and you feel that ache of a loss of something sentimental to you. The album from my great grandmother that we've been adding pictures to, my mother's wedding ring that she gave to me, something that really holds that you would feel a gap in your heart if that was gone. If you can take it with you, take it with you. Honestly, it can be hard to have all of these things in a go bag by themselves. When it comes to the valuable possessions, I personally have mine in a smaller little bag on my counter because I use them. I'll use some of those rings, but I'll put them there because I can grab that. I have my documents and my cash in my little safe. I can grab those and I have my bag and I'm gone. But I also have them because I know I might use them on a day-to-day basis. First aid kit. You didn't listen to me. You cut yourself because you opened the can with a knife and you need Band-Aids and you need antiseptic, some Neosporin, some gauze, whatever it might be. You want to have an emergency kit with you and an animal emergency kit with you. As you're planning, as you're packing, think of your kids, think of your animals, think of special needs or extra needs that your family may have. Take your emergency plan with you. You should have a communication card there too, like who are we calling? If you have a 8-year-old and they can read numbers and make phone calls, but they can't remember the number of everyone they need to, having a card is helpful. Again, in emergency, our brains will forget things. So having written everything is helpful. Where are we supposed to meet again? Oh, it's on the plan. And that's already in my bag and it's already in my car and there's one next to my door, so I'm ready to go. Multi-purpose tool, helpful, can be very useful. Especially if you forget the manual pen opener, but still good to have. And if you can, a portable radio. Another thing that can be useful, especially with communication issues that come with earthquakes. Check and replace anything expired or malfunctioning every 6 months. When you change your clocks, check your bags is what I do. Helps me to remember. I have to do this anyway, so add one little extra step and just check what I have. And if I'm doing that at the same time that I'm doing my drills, now I can kill like 3 birds with 1 stone, and I can change my clocks, do my drill, and check my bag and make sure that my family's ready to go.
And check your fire extinguisher batteries.
And check
Change-
and your
change it to
your
pressure.
carbon monoxide alarm. So cars, you jumper cable and tow rope. The jumper cables, I'm just gonna personally say, they've helped me like 8 times already, and not in any major emergency. They're just good to have. Same thing with the spare tire and jack. And if you used your spare tire, get another spare tire. I'm talking to myself when I was 16, but map, compass, and spare keys. And you might think, who has a map nowadays? But your phone might not work, your data might not work, you might not be able to map things the way you want to map them. You might have left your phone in the house because it fell off the bed and you had to leave quickly and don't know how to go, weren't able to grab it. Or it may have died because you don't have a charger. So having a map, knowing those routes as you're trying to leave is helpful. Having a compass, having spare keys to your car, to your house is helpful.
I just had a thing happen a few days ago, and it occurred to me that I've got a 16-year-old that's just about getting ready to drive.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I know, it's scary. And I thought, as you know, as I was preparing for him to be able to drive, I looked at my car emergency kit and I realized that I have jumper cables in there, but I have no instructions. And he doesn't know how to use jumper cables. And they can be very dangerous if they're not used properly. They can destroy cars, they can kill people. They're very dangerous if they're not used right. So I went on the internet and I found a little instruction guide, and I made a copy of it and I put it in my emergency kit so that if he's driving and he's new to this and he doesn't know how to use jumper cables, he's got instructions in that kit.
And I hope he made a spare key in case he locks the key in his car, which again, talking to 16-year-old me, happened at least. My mom ended up getting AAA after the second time. She's like, I'm done with you. Just call them, don't call me.
I'll tell you, I've had jumper cables for a long time, but I finally decided to upgrade. What I found at Costco, someone told me that it was like a battery backup charger, so you don't need another car. You just connect it to your battery and you can give you a charge and you can get to wherever you need to go. And so that has come in handy twice. And then also for Christmas last year, I gave all of my children, who are all adults, but you know, alleged adults, those little electric tire pressure
Yeah.
pumps. They're little, you know, they're like $40. That thing, we've used it at least 10 times already.
And there is one that does both, by the way. There is one that does the air pump and the charging.
Oh, so yeah.
That
So
one's a little more expensive, but they've come up with some pretty cool technology.
yeah, if you haven't started your kit, I'll just warn you, once you start, you can't stop. It's like, oh, that's a cool thing. I'm gonna put that in there. Oh, this is even better. And then if you share your what you put in your kit with someone else, you'll go, oh, I want what you put in your kit.
Just be
It's-
strategic. Don't
Yeah.
fill your entire
It needs to
car.
make, it needs to make a difference to you. Otherwise, don't put it in your kit.
Yes. Absolutely. So then under the bed, again, the shoes, but if you want to take it a step further, dust mask, helmet. I actually do have a helmet right next to the front of my door. I have 3. and I got made fun of by a little 12-year-old who doesn't understand me. And I was trying to explain to her, which by the way, I'm doing an earthquake drill with her for the Great Shakeout because she needs to learn. She needs to learn that that helmet could save her beautiful little head if we come outside and a piece of the roof falls down and it's heavy and it would crack your head open. So having that would be helpful. Protective, basically anything, any protective wear, light stick or flashlight. A whistle can be helpful. A whistle can be helpful because if unfortunately it can happen, you end up under the rubble, screaming's not gonna help you. Okay, it's not. Like you can try, but it's likely not going to help you. What's gonna help you is other noises. So banging any metal rods, whistles, especially if you're deep under the rubble. If you're really pretty close up, maybe the screaming will help. But if you're down there, people aren't hearing you and you need something to make them hear you, and having a whistle right next to you can be really useful. And then an okay or help sign. I've heard of many communities who also do this, and they'll do it with their like little neighborhood watches or their CERT teams, where you just put, if you need help, if you're injured, you put the sign or you put the okay. But if you have a team, it's more useful. Why? Because if you need help, you oftentimes can't get up and put the help sign on the window. But if your community, your team, you are in a CERT team and you have your own little city or neighborhood community watch or whatever it might be, there could be a deal that in something big like that, if they don't see an okay sign, they're gonna come knock on your door and come try to check on you. And if they see your car, that you might, depending on your neighborhood and how much you trust them, might say, come in and check because the bookshelf may have fallen on me. And I can't come to the window to ask for help.
Yeah, and I will tell you that if you're one of the people that's going around your neighborhood checking those signs, if there's an okay sign on the window, that's fine if the disaster's just happened. But if it's 24 hours later and that okay sign is still up there, you might want to still check because they may not have been able to turn the sign around.
Yes, definitely.
How, are any of you part of an organized neighborhood? And I'll ask if you're part of a CERT team too, but
No, we are, in the villages.
yeah, the Villages has an amazing neighborhood organization. Is anyone else?
But many of you people can't live there because you're all too young.
Deborah's got her hand up.
Deborah, tell me about your neighborhood.
Shady Hollow Homeowners Association in the unincorporated part of Hayward. So we're up in the
Nice.
hills and I'm a CERT team member. And so I did the map your neighborhood. So I got all 12 condos with their evacuation plans now.
Very nice.
That
Good
is
job, Lisa. Lisa's Concord CERT instructor.
awesome.
Ah, yeah, very good. It's really fun and a wonderful community building activity because the earthquake doesn't care where you came from or what language you speak, or how old or young you are, or what abilities you have or don't have. It's going to impact all of you. And so the moment that it happens and you all walk out of your front doors because you're in shock and you are not quite sure what to do yet, you're going to look at everybody and that's your family at that moment, because you all experience the same thing at the same time. So you have a shared experience, and it takes just doing that, pretending that there was just an earthquake and walking everybody outside and then sitting down and talking about, if this was a real earthquake, what would we do? What would we need? You can start your own program, and we have resources. Every community emergency response team has resources to organize neighborhoods. And it really is the best guarantee that you're going to get out of the disaster with the least amount of harm, because and then your whole neighborhood are buddies after that, right? Because they all helped each other out and they were successful. I'll stop talking now.
Ken, tell us about your program.
Well, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. At our house, we have, both cars have emergency kits in them. And then I keep an inventory of those cars posted on the garage wall, and along with a list of things that we would want to take from the house to put into the cars in case we had to bug out.
That's good.
That's excellent, because your brain will not be working properly at that time.
And something else I do want to share about just this topic in general. Having your community is really helpful for response. It can be really helpful for preparedness, but recovery, when we talk about community resilience and the ability not just to withstand a disaster, but to come back stronger than previously, that has never been experienced or witnessed when the community doesn't work together. And when we see those signs of resilience, we see communities coming together, we see neighbors sharing generators, we see them bringing over food and having a barbecue on their destroyed block as they try to rebuild their homes and their lives. And that level of camaraderie and just that community, it can not just save your life, it can not just help you with the response, but it will get you through the recovery.
When Loma Prieta happened, it was about 5 o'clock at night, and I was a single mom with a couple of kids at home, and I was just getting off work. And by the time I got home, one of my neighbors had pulled their RV up in front of my house, and several of the other neighbors had brought their barbecues, and they were putting together dinner for everyone. And it was, I'm telling you, it brings tears to my eyes today. It was that impactful on me.
And that is the psychological impact of any kind of traumatic event like that. You will always keep it with you.
Yeah.
And that's okay. And you're allowed to tear up.
Yeah. And that can last far after the recovery is done. After everything is said and done, now you've built, and this is part of that idea of resilience, of building something out of something so traumatic, building something beautiful. And something beautiful that can come out of disasters is that community. It's having people you know that when the next big thing happens, they will be right next to you. So children and pets, kids are, when we talk about resilience, kids are super resilient. But with that said, it's how you deal with them pre-disaster and how you prepare for them that's going to help them get through. If your child has went through evacuation drills 2, 3, 4 times a year, if you pack for them their favorite toys and their favorite books and a few non-electronic games, their experience is going to be so vastly different if you don't do those things. And I'll give you an example. I did research on multiple disaster exposure in Southeast Louisiana. And what I found when I interviewed children, now as adults, who had went through Hurricane Katrina, the difference between what they say is astounding. So I had this boy, and he was talking to me about this experience that he had. And he said, the worst thing of it wasn't losing our house. It wasn't the homeless shelter. It was the evacuation. We were sitting in this car and I can't remember how many hours, but it felt like my whole life, and we had nothing to do. And my mom was crying and screaming at her boyfriend, and it was the worst thing. And we didn't know where we were going to go. And I can never forget it. And then there was this other child, this girl, and she said, oh yeah, it was like a vacation. We got in the car and my mom had got cards, and me and my brother were playing cards in the back, and it took forever and it was so boring, but we had snacks, and I took this really long nap, and we were going to my sister's house in Georgia, and my mom said that we could go to Disneyland, and she didn't seem panicked, so I didn't panic. And that was the difference. It was a nightmare versus a vacation. And the same thing is happening. These homes are being destroyed. These people have a hurricane that is destroying their lives. But the kids' memories of this are so different. And that girl, they evacuated 3 more times after that. Every time she was ready to go, she showed me her go back. That boy, he said that every time he heard about a potential hurricane that he grit his teeth because he was not ready to deal with it. Huge difference, small things, having a few games for them, having their favorite toy. Like, you don't understand what type of difference that can make for them, and having them practice so they're not as scared. And I know it's hard, but keeping yourself calm and collected for your kids, even if you don't know what's going to happen next. I don't know what's going to happen, but we're going to stick together. We're going to figure it out. And just trying to keep that steadiness for them. Baby supplies, formula, clothes, diapers, pacifiers if you have young, little ones. And don't forget about your pets. Don't forget about their carriers, their leash, their own emergency kits, their tags, their medicines, their documents. Just like you plan for yourself, you're planning for them. Okay, so you can do some stuff to help in your house. Securing big things like your water heater, like your fridge, securing them to the wall will help greatly. If your home was built before 1978, or if you live in a mobile home, getting modifications to make it earthquake ready, very helpful. Cabinets, big one, small cost. You can get these from the Dollar Tree. The little snap, the baby proof things for the cabinets, they can prevent all of your freaking dishes from coming down and making your kitchen unenterable. And some homes, some apartments, your kitchen is your only entrance in and out. My old apartment was like that. So having those closed, or if you're cooking, not having 20 dishes smash onto your head can be a very big thing for your well-being. So those probably the easiest. The bigger stuff is harder, but it is important. You don't want your fridge falling on you, or your bookshelf falling on you, or your water heater falling on you in an earthquake. So taking those extra steps. So just a few, exactly what I was saying. Latch all the cabinet doors, secure potential flying things. Please don't put anything heavy above your bed or anywhere you sit a lot. Like, I made sure I had the lightest little picture frame right behind me and my little work desk when I worked remotely all the time, because I didn't want anything hitting me. Your bed's even bigger for that.
If you're at the office and you've got a cubicle and you've got cubicle bins above you and they've got big giant binders in them, you might want to rethink that whole process.
Heavy stuff goes down. Light stuff is up. Heavy stuff down. Bookshelves go the same exact way. Cabinets go the same exact way. Securing electronics. If you don't want your 70-inch TV or your 32-inch TV to come smashing to the ground. Again, that won't kill you, but it could hurt you. It could lead to you stepping on some glass, and it's going to cost you. So, last step. Be ready. Do you know your neighbors? Can you please raise your hand if you know at least 2 of your neighbors, have their contact information, and would check on them in the event of an emergency?
Yep.
Any raised hands? I got one. Ken?
Debbie?
Come on.
A great little step you can do. And if you don't, well, you're going to check for your water and gas meters. Go introduce yourself to a couple neighbors. Pick the ones who give you the best vibes, but go to them. Talk to a couple people. Know who's in your community. It's good for you to know without a disaster. Better in a disaster.
Yeah. And make sure they know if you're not home to go over and check your gas and water. Did you already say that?
Yes.
Sorry. I can't say it enough.
Yes.
You want your house to blow up or their house to blow up.
And if you have pets at home, talk to them about it. If they have a cat that plays with your cat and you're at work, well, I cannot forget about the pets, man.
Oh, I agree.
She said she's doing outreach at Bark in the Park on Saturday, so she's very pet oriented.
If anyone is there, you'll see me on the floor with the dogs. But always be aware of your surroundings and your nearest exit. When you enter a room, know where to exit from. And that could be a window. It might not be just a door. Where are my 2 closest exits from my house, from my building, from any building I am in, from any city I am in? Where am I exiting if I have to quickly get out of here? Being aware of your surroundings. Just like when you cross the street, it's supposed to look both ways. Be aware of what's around you. if an earthquake happens while you're walking down the street and you're on your phone and oblivious to what's going on, you might get hit by a pole or a tree or something that you could have easily avoided.
That sounds exciting.
You know that firefighters, when they go on vacation, they do not stay in a hotel room that's above the 7th floor. You know why?
There's a whole.
Because that's as tall as the ladder is.
Keep important devices charged. I'm gonna practice what I preach here more often, but that is a big one. Your phone can be a lifeline. If it's on 5% when an emergency happens and you don't have a charger, we have a problem. Your tank, your gas tank, if you have a car, keep it at least a third way. I believe half, I agree with half,
Thankful.
but if you can't, get something full. Personally, get it as full as you possibly can and keep it that way. But I also know, at least when I was a starving college student, I couldn't even get it halfway once on my best days. So do your best to get it as full as possible. Do your best to keep your devices, your important devices, as full as possible, and know your rights and your resources. You have rights. You have a right to the basic mass care support that your government's offering you, regardless of if you have an ID or you have citizenship or what you have a right against discrimination. You have basic rights and you do have resources available to you. You just need to look for them proactively and know what's available to you.
And your local government has responsibilities.
Yes.
Yeah. They have to have a translator if you need to speak another language. They have to get you a translator.
And emergency shelters are safe zones for ICE. So if you are undocumented and you're scared to seek basic support like food and shelter, they can't touch you. You're protected in those locations. And
Red Cross will never turn them away,
yes,
never.
ever. So. And again, just some of those resources, shelter housing, mental health, sometimes financially it's available, sometimes it's not, but it could be cleanup support, rebuilding support, insurance advocacy, United policyholders, hit them up for that insurance advocacy. They have great information and resources. Same thing for tenant advocacy, like if your place is damaged, it can waive the lease, things along that line. If you don't have renter's insurance and you're renting, get renter's insurance. It's like $15 and it can protect your property, basically, get you your money back for that, and even cover hotels, a lot of them. Well, not all of them, but some of them. Check your policies.
Again, I would say to you, your local government has responsibilities for your recovery as well, and to assist you with that recovery.
Mhm.
So, you know, make sure that you tap into those resources.
Absolutely. And again, you have a right to information and alerts in your language. You do not have to show an ID to shelter staff or police when receiving any emergency public care, like in a public location. The government has to provide you shelter, food. You're not gonna get a 3-course meal, but you will get that basic support. Public shelters are not comfortable places, but it is a place with a roof and a bed to take care of your basic needs. Same thing with medical assistance. If there's transportation being provided, you have a right to that without any discrimination, regardless of citizenship, race, class, gender, sexual orientation, any of that. And any other emergency resources that are available. People can't discriminate against you. Everyone is supposed to be taken care of equally. And again, protected areas includes schools, shelters, places of worship, food banks, medical facilities, evacuation facilities are all protected for immigrants. ICE can't touch them. More information, we have a lot more information on our website. The QR code's there. CADRESV.org for the earthquake information. It's just /earthquake. If you have questions, or you can call, you can email. We are always happy to help and support and provide guidance. Again, we do have more information on earthquakes available on our website, including the full 1 second counts video. which gives you a pretty good recap of kind of what we talked about. And then we have mini videos. We have like breakdowns. So if you wanted to share some of this basic information with somebody else, and it's a person with a short attention span or something along that lines, we have the 2 to 4 minute videos about that talk about all of these different little things, like shutting off the gas by using a fire extinguisher, etc. And then our preparedness webpage has a huge amount of resources. We really are trying to make it a one-stop for anything disaster related you need to prepare or learn about emergencies. And that is the end of the presentation. Comments, questions, thoughts, concerns. If you want to share anything else that you guys are doing or want to do in relation to earthquake or disaster preparedness, please unmute yourself and speak or put it in the chat.
Deborah's got her hand up. Deborah?
Just one little tip, when you do pack some clothes in your go kit, make sure they're cotton and not a synthetic material, because if it is hot, the synthetics can melt. So you want to pack cotton.
Good point.
Yeah, that's a good point. Can I share my screen for 1 second?
Oh yeah, let me stop sharing.
Okay, this is Marcia, and I've been just chiming in, but I wanted to just share this one slide. If I can. So this is a friend of ours she is a writer for the New York Times. Her name's Amanda Ripley, and the first book she ever wrote was called The Unthinkable: Who Survives When Disasters Strike and Why. And if you're looking for a great audio book, I mean, I do have the paper book too, but I like to listen to it in my car. She interviewed people that survived disasters and what their thought process was and what they saw around them. And it's quite insightful. But the biggest thing that I take away from her book is that your response, if you haven't prepared at all mentally for a disaster, any disaster, that you will have a very hard time figuring it out. It doesn't matter how capable you are, because when you're in a life-threatening or what your brain is perceiving to be a threatening situation, your amygdala, which is your fight or flight reflex, takes control of you. So all of your cognitive abilities go away. You're now primitively in fight or flight, and your amygdala is going to search your brain for what to do. So the biggest part of everything that we're talking about today is asking yourself, what if this happened? What would I do? So that you have some mental decisions already made when you're not panicked, so that your brain can grab hold of those good decisions and take you in the right direction. And so I highly recommend just thinking through disasters. What if this happened? What if you couldn't go back in your house for the next week?
She talks about interviewing people that were in the 9/11 disasters, and she talks about that disaster was not something that anyone had ever experienced or ever thought to experience before. And so many people just sat at their desks with this winding going on in their brains, trying to relate it to something that they had experienced, or trying to find some way to relate that disaster, what was happening in front of them, to something that they had done or that they had experienced before. And so consequently, we used to think that people would run from a building screaming, but they didn't. Many people just sat at their desks with a blank stare because they had nothing to relate to. And if you practice your disaster drills, if you practice making those phone calls to out of town family or friends, if you practice that whole process, when that disaster hits you, you'll have something. Your tape won't just spin. You won't just sit there in a deadpan. You'll have something to relate to, and you'll have the ability to get out and do what you need to do.
And Lisa has her hand raised.
I
Lisa,
totally
go ahead.
echo all of that. the book is great and it's worth your time to read it or listen to it. And something I've done with my family and friends is you've got 10 minutes. What are you taking? Make that an exercise in your house. 10 minutes. What are you taking? It makes people
And
think.
that's it. And that's it. And you have to be okay with that. So, and that's a mental preparation too. It's like, you are the only thing in your house that's irreplaceable. And even if it's a one of a kind thing, it's not you. So we're not gonna worry about things. We're worried about people and pets. And so, yeah, thank you. Is there anybody else that has done anything special at their home? Or any special tips that you want to share with the group? And I know you all have prepared.
Is there anything you're gonna do?
Ken's got his,
Yeah.
go ahead, Ken.
One thing you can do is, a nice thing at Christmas is to give your spouse a kit that goes under the bed. You know, hard hat, goggles, mask, flashlight, you know, those kinds of things.
Yep.
Merry Christmas.
Yep. Now I've given
Your kids too.
yeah, given my family emergency supplies several times because it is something that they know they should do. We all know we should do it. We just don't do it. And that's the sad part, is that we know better, but because there's no due date for the disaster, we don't know what day it's coming, so we're not going to be ready. And that's it's very sad when it happens and you go, oh shoot, I should have done that.
Absolutely. One last question, and when we hang up, there will be a survey. If you can please take it, it helps us get feedback on how to improve our trainings. So really, really would appreciate it. I'm also putting in the chat, just in case. But
It also helps us get funded for future trainings.
yes, definitely. So we can keep these types of informational trainings going. But one last question, is there anything that you're going to do this week? Kind of as a result, or maybe you already had it planned in your head to help prepare yourself for earthquakes or other disasters after this training? Are you gonna go check your meters? Are you gonna go meet your neighbors? That's more of I just want to see if you're planning it, if it prompted any thought to do something additional. Yeah, Ken.
I'm not unmuted. What I'm going to do is look into that device that gives you both a charge for your vehicle and I forget what the other part of it was, but I'm gonna look into that device.
The tires and the charge, I'll Google
Right,
that
tire
right
charging.
now, see if I can find
Charging.
it. We do want to invite you all to two big events this weekend. On Saturday, Bark in the Park in San Jose, which is all about animals, and we will be there with pet preparedness information. And that's at Willow Street Park at Willow and 16th in San Jose. And then the other is at Reed Hillview Airport in San Jose. It's sponsored by CalDART, the Disaster Airlift Response Team, and we'll also be there. And both sites are going to have all kinds of information related to preparedness and just other resilience types of information that you might want to know. So maybe you can come out and say hi to us.
Bring your dog to Bark in the Park so Luna has someone to hug.
And don't laugh at me when I roll around with the puppies.
And does anyone, there was on the slide, and I don't know if you caught it, there is an email that you can email if you would like a certificate for taking this class. It's not a certified anything class. We're just trying to give you practical information. But the Bay Area Urban Area Security Initiative will send you a certificate that says that you took it. So, her email,
It's in the chat.
it's in the chat, okay.
It's heather@sfcard.org and it is in the chat.
Yeah.
And it will be on the PowerPoint too. We post our information after the training, so you can also find it at cadresv.org, but not yet. Give us a little bit of time to get everything uploaded also. That way you're able to share the training too, if you would like.
Thank you for the evening.
Oh, look at that, jump starters with air compression. They range from $47 to $200. Okay, another toy I have to get.
Thank you.
I
for
have
the
one in
evening.
my car, but I don't have one in my truck.
Well, there you go.
Thank
It isn't
you.
gonna help when you're driving the truck.
That's right.
Thank you all so much for your time. And if you have any other questions, let us know.
Thank you.
Well done. Appreciate all the information and the refresher on some of the information as well. And stay safe, everyone.
Thanks.
Thanks, Lisa.